footage is now false. Let me go back inside, and then it will show us this screen. Now, when we vote, when you click on yes, we want to see the update. The thing will should change from that to that. What that will mean is that that this vote variable is going to be passed to the candidate card, right? And the candidate will listen to the so because it will take you need to take that vote, right? Now, if you enter the candidate card, where are we pressing? We are pressing on this button. Where is this button? This button is not in the candidate card directly. It is inside the dialog, and inside that dialog too, it's going to be inside the dialog content, right? This is the dialog. The card itself is the dialog, and then the content inside. So we are going inside that, right? So we need to make sure that the person that is actually going to use that value, right, is inside the confirm vote dialog content. That's where it's going to be, and it is where confirm dialog content. That's the content, and that particular variable is actually located somewhere here. So this is what we need to do on press for this yes vote. We are doing yes vote, right? And this is a function that will run on it. If the person has run on it, so meaning that we need to pass that force from this vote screen up to this one. And when we run it, we need to change. When we click on press, we need to change that value. And when we change that value, this vote screen, that UI that we wrote in another file, needs to also listen to that particular data and give us the right front end UI, right? So we'll be passing data from one UI to another to another. That is very huge. What if we have a central place where all the data is, right? And all the pages that you write are all in, they are all listening to that single source of truth. We have, we need to have um, a central place where all the data is, right? And then when we update it, that data, we can update that data from anywhere. We can access that data from anywhere, with any file at all. We don't need to wait for a previous file to pass the data to the next one, to pass the data to the next one, to pass the data to the next one. We need to be able to handle that data. We need to actually be able to handle the state of the UI, because when some particular data changes, the UI also responds in a different way. The state of the app changes in a different way. That's when we lead us to the concept of state management. We should be able to put, like, we be able to handle state, right, by responding to data changes. When a particular file somewhere changes a data somewhere, the other files or the other screen should also be responding to that particular source of truth. So all of them will be listening to that. How do we make that change? That's what we call state management. And what we are going to use is going to be Riverpod. We'll be using Riverpod as our state manager. Right? It's not really a state manager, but it's not really a state manager, it's an architecture, Riverpod architecture. So it's an architecture that comes with a lot of, but we are going to start very slow. For this, our single distance, you see, the single value that is changing most of the thing is that vote. Where is it located? It's not in the dialog content file, it is inside the vote screen and on top here, right? And this is a single file. It's not like before the next file can have access to it unless we pass it to it when we are using that file here, like that. But we want to have a single source of truth for every distance. So for such variable, kind of variable where every UI screen needs the change needs to happen somewhere for it to be changed in another place, or multiple other screens can need to be responding to that. We need to group everything into one file. That's where we go back to our application layer, right? So we have been in the presentation layer so far. So we need to go to the application layer that we wrote. Inside it, right, there are election notifier providers and then user notifier. So we are going to providers. So basically this place, these guys are, this is where we put everything that we providing data for us. That's what we call provider. Ability to provide data for us. But before we need to have that, we need to be able to install a package. We need to install a package. And that package, to install that package is called Riverpod. So you say Flutter pub add Flutter underscore Riverpod. Okay, so that's how you can add Riverpod to it. Right, that's how you can add Riverpod to your system. Right, then you just click on enter, and then it will be added to. So when I already have it, right, I already have it, but then you can add it, and then it will update automatically for you. Right. Yes. So you see, I click on this plus button to have another shell and I run it. But my previous one that is maintaining the this information. But you can click on that plus sign to have another. Click on it. You see, it opens a new PowerShell for you. Yes. So you can. That's how you can just manage that. You have added this package. I can delete this one, and then that this is the one handling the UI thing restored for me. So now I'm inside here now. So by now, Riverpod has been added to my list of packages in my pub spec. So we need to import Flutter Riverpod, uh, Flutter Riverpod. This one, dot that. We need to import it. This is what we need to use here. Now, how do we use that? Final has okay user vote um, provider, right? User vote provider is going to be equal to. So we are going to use their state provider. This is what we are going to, and then data type is going to be this, and then we are going to return something inside. Inside it, let's open it, and then we open a function. You need to write a full function that take ref, and that ref is going to return. We are returning right now. We are going to return false. Now, let me explain to you what's happening here. State provider Riverpod legacy. Yeah, this one, the state provider is a legacy kind of thing. Um, let's just use provider, right? Let's just use provider, not state provider. Legacy means that old code. So right now we are using the newest package, but the state provider, yes, you needed to bring the old one. But let's use provider and be able to work with it as well. So currently we are just returning the photo. This is what we did, right? That variable that we have there, we have put it here as a river pod, right? Inside the river pod. So the provider, let me using the web provider so that you can understand that it's going to be the one providing the data. So we are passing this to it, right? And to be listening to this source of truth. So this is one source. This is where the variable is, the actual variable is user vote provider. This one is going to return what for us, of course, and then its provider, and then what you are returning, the data type of the thing you are returning. Here I'm returning a bool, right? It's either going to be true or false, so I'm returning a false. And then this ref thing is that's the architecture, that's the syntax that you need to bring this ref, and then the thing will happen. But that's not all. We need to make the entire app know that there is a single source of truth. So you need to go to your main.dat, right? You go to the top, and then around the run app, right, where you have my app or whatever app that you have, inside the void main run app and thing, that my app, we need to wrap that my app with a widget, and that widget is going to be called scope provider scope. This one, now I need to remove this constant from here and rather put it in front of the provider scope. So this is just basically going to tell the system, the whole app, that okay, know that there's a single source of truth now. It's a state manager in the system, and that state manager is a provider scope. That's what basically we are doing. We came to wrap it inside to tell the entire app that okay, there's going to be a single source of truth. There's going to be something that will be managing data source for us. So that's it. So you need to be listening to that in order to change the UI accordingly. So that's what we came to inform the entire app. Let's hot restart everything, and then any screen that will be listening or be checking that particular provider should not just be stateless widget or stateful widget. That particular provider should be able to consume data from there, right? That particular UI that we are going to use should be able to consume data from there. Now let's go to the vote screen, right? Now we are not going to have this has voted and all the blah 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 that we have here. Yeah, there's going to be error now, right? So now what we need to do is that we need to go inside the build function, right, and do final as voted. So let's say voted, right, equals to ref dot watch But there's a problem. Before we even use this thing, I need to explain something first. I say currently this particular this thing is what stateful widgets, right? This screen we want it to listen to that source of data because we want to go and fetch. We want to fetch that value. Which value? This value inside the application layer, the provider. This is a Riverpod something, right? This is a provider thing, and this is going to far is going to help us put everything here for all the screens to be listening to it. For any screen that will be listening to a value or a provider, we need to make sure that that screen is not just stateless or stateful or whatever. We are going to use that. So this particular screen, a whole screen right now, should now turn into a consumer's widget, right? Because it's going to consume data from a provider, right? So we're going to say it's going to be consumer stateful widget. It should be a consumer stateful widget. Right now, we need to import it, right? We need to import the Riverpod package for us to import import package flutter flutter underscore Riverpod pod forward slash yes. So flutter underscore Riverpod or that, and then yeah. So we have imported it, but there's an error here. So where how you see state, right? Change it to whenever you see this state, change it to consumer consumer state, right? And wherever you see this state, to change it to consumer state, yeah. And that's it. So change to consumer stateful widget. Make sure Riverpod is imported wherever you are. So this particular screen has now been changed to a consumer. So you should be able to ready to consume data from a particular state manager or Riverpod or provider. That's what it means. So now we go inside here and we say, okay, the voted. So let's say get data from the consumer. Make sure that you are inside the build. Don't be on top of the build. If you want to listen to the UI, if you want to listen to a provider, make sure the build is inside the build. Don't if you want to get a value from a provider, make sure uh, you you are inside the build, not outside or on top of it like you used to put all our other variables. So we're going to say final, or that is going to be what like final voted equals to ref dot watch, right? We are going to watch what's the name of the variable, the what's the name of the let me put it with semicolon first. We need to put something in. We need to put the provider that we are using inside. What's the name of the provider? Let me go inside. The provider name is user vote provider. User vote provider. I'm going to type it there. I'm not going to copy it so that when I'm typing, I can quickly press on enter or select so that it will do the import for me. So user is going to be user vote. Is here. User vote provider. You click on it. Now what happened is that we are now this variable voted that we have now is going to be listening to or watching a particular variable. So we are making at this screen for this particular variable, we are going to listen to that source of data. So whenever this thing change, the UI will update. That's what happened. Whenever this thing change, the UI will update. So right now, it is this user voted is returning what at the beginning it is what false, right? User voted is in provided it is false, right? In the beginning it is false. So keep that in mind. Let's hot restart this and see and enter. So it is false, right? It is false. So we are having still the vote. The person hasn't voted yet. Let's go inside the vote screen, and then no problem. There's no problem. There's voted is back, right? So you can go to the candidate card. Inside the candidate card, we know you have confirm something something. You have confirm vote dialog. Now we are back here. What we are actually confirming, right? Where are you? So this is the yes button. And then inside here, we want to be able to update that, right? So this one will be also needs to listen to this one also needs to listen to what that provider is going to read or change that provider. So this is another UI, another class, right? And that class, see what's happening. vote dialog contents extend stateless widget, right? Now, what we changed first was it was stateful widget and we changed it to stateless widget. It was stateful widget and we changed it to no, sorry. It was stateful widget and we changed it to consumer stateful widget. It was stateful widget and we changed it to consumer stateful widget. Now we don't want to for stateless widget, it doesn't happen like that. You have to remove, you don't have to add just like don't go and add consumer stateless widget. No, it doesn't happen. All you need to do, you need to remove the stateless altogether and just put consumer widget. It's a consumer widget. Right now, we don't have it here. Why? Because we haven't imported. Riverpod is not imported here. So we are going to say flat package flatter underscore riverpod forward slash then riverpod dot dat, right? You could click on it and it will import it for you using our smart lister. Now, okay. Now, because this is the consumer widget, right? Because it is consumer widget that you are using, so it's stateless. It is by default stateless. When we were using the consumer stateful widget, right? That one we just went to use the ref. But here, what's happening is that we are going to add another argument to the build context, right? Called widget ref. Ref. You need to pass this variable. You need to add it because this is a stateless widget that change. So consumer widget is the one that you change it to. Consumer widget. If it is consumer stateful widget, you don't need to pass this. You just made a previous change because the previous screen I showed you was a stateful widget. And we changed it to consumer stateful widget. And we didn't know to write that. But this one was a stateless widget, right? And we want it to still listen to state manager or a provider. So what will happen is that you need to change the consumer widget, not consumer stateless widget. And then you need to remember to add this because this is a consumer widget, right? Okay. So that's the difference. That's the first difference you need to know about provider, right? So the ability right now we are just making the screen listen to that provider that we created, right? Provider is the one that provides the data. They provide the data, right? We don't want it to be inside a particular class and then something. We want it to be at a central place, which we did. And now we are going to update that. When we click on yes, always look at the syntax. Update the provider, the vote provider. That's it. Also update the user vote provider. That's what happens. So how do we do that? We do ref dot read, right? Then we say user vote provider, right? User vote provider is this one. I'm selecting it. Dot notifier inside it, right? Dot notifier dot um what are we going to use? State equals to true. Okay, notifier. All right. I get that notifier the provider. Okay. If I'm doing state widget, okay. So let me show you this thing. So let's say provider, right? Where are you? So let's go back to state. Let's use state provider. Let's use state provider. Let's import legacy. So we are importing the legacy. So we will not be using the new one yet because we're using state provider. There are various kind of providers, but right now we are going to maintain this thing, the legacy one for now. State provider. Legacy is like the previous code. If you have meet legacy code. Okay. So we are using state provider. Where are you? We were inside dialog content, right? So this is where we are. Now we are saying that. So this is how it's doing. So rf.read, right? rf.read. What happening? We need to call the provider dot notifier. Dot notifier because that's how the legacy code went. We have to call this dot notifier because that's how the legacy went. But that's the syntax, right? Equal to state. And we change the value. Or okay. So all these syntax, right? So all the only thing you need to know is that if you want to update something, a provider, you use dot read, right? If you want to you use dot read to be able to call it first, and you do dot state. Dot state, you don't change it. It is inbuilt. You have to be dot state. Then you give in, you supply the new value. Right now, the original value was what? providers here. The original value for that was false, right? We are just changing it to, it's a bool, so we are changing it to true now. Where are you? Um, no, not vote screen. We are inside the dialog content, and then we are changing it to true. That's what we are doing here. So this is all you need to worry about, the new value. But this is the syntax. You need to call rf.read and this thing, and then user. I'll take time to really explain this thing well, right? Or maybe through more exercise or more practice, you'll be able to get used to it as well. So basically, we just centralize all data. We centralize all data, and then we are just trying to read and update them accordingly, right? Okay. So how okay, yeah, this is basically what you do, right? It will change the value to true and things. Let me run this. Okay, yeah, you need to import to restart everything. Um, or to restarting everything. Open. What do we have? Yeah. So now currently we start the app, right? At the beginning, the provider is what? The provider is false at the beginning, right? That's why you are seeing this button. So I'm going here, right? I click on no, it will cancel. But if I click on code, what happened is that it will I will click on this and then you change it to yes. You see what happened? The UI has changed, right? It has responded because the UI has responded. This guy's value, new value now is now true because of what we did here. Where are we changing it? We are changing it inside the dialog content. So all of them are listening to the same source of truth, right? Right, the same source of truth. All those screens, the dialogue and then the UI, the whole screen, all of them they are listening to. So you see this guy, this is the dialogue content. This is where we did the update, right? So we have to update this guy, right? Yeah, this is what we just set it back to true. So when the user has voted, then we give back to true, right? And the other logic things that we've learned so far happen, right? So now become true or false. The next thing will be how to centralize all those data as well. So you see, we are passing all these things from one screen to another, from one screen to another, and all the blah blah blah. But look at that. We need to also make sure that this total vote is also not um the total vote is also not here in one particular screen, but it's also going to be a centralized place. It's going to be around the provider as well. So let's put this in also in a provider. If you want to add this in also as a provider, I mean this int total vote, what we're going to, you're going to the providers, um, total vote provider, we call it final total vote provider. This is a provider because they provide the data. Going to state provider, then the data type is going to be an integer, right? Then you put a bracket, right? Now inside the bracket, let's open it. Then there is a this one that receive RF, and then you open it. This one will return what's value 50. Yeah, so it's returning 50 because that's the value we give it, right? So that's what will happen, right? So we have just changed that value into a center. So all everywhere here that we are going to need a provider, we are putting all of them here. And every screen, any screen that want to listen to it, like the candidate card, for example, that's where we are showing these numbers, right? So this progress bar and things, right? So we are dividing by 50, but we want to change it to listen to the value inside the provider. So what you need to do is that you need to make sure that you first change this to it is candidate card because it's going to listen to a provider. We need to change it to from stateless widget to, if it is stateless, you do consumer widget, right? Let me import Riverpod. I've imported Riverpod, and because it's consumer widget, we need to add widget ref ref, right? So now let me fetch the initial value. Um, let me fetch the initial value. Um, total vote, right? So final ref, no, total vote equals to rf dot um, watch, right? Mm, we are getting the value, right? We are basically fetching the value. So RF dot total vote provider. Yeah, total vote provider. That's what we are having here. So I'm going inside here and doing, instead of divided by 50, I'm going to total vote. Yeah. And this one too, I'm going to say total vote, and everything will be responding. I don't need that previous default total vote thing. So let me hot restart everything so that we can see its impact. So here originally I'm hot restarted everything. So so right now I'm going to vote. Right, currently I'm not voting. So but if I click on vote and I click on yes, so now it shows, right? The percentage and everything still shows. And then they are listening to this provider. So we have if the person has voted or not is being here. If the person total votes or whatever has voted or not, it is being kept here as well, right? So you can use provider, right, to make sure that different screen listen to that. So what happens is that you don't have much to be sending from one UI to another. You just manage the provider in one place and you'll be using it. So this is just using state provider and it's a legacy one. When we are moving forward, right, we'll be changing all these things to use major actual classes and things, and be using the async notifier provider and everything so that we can see how they run.